Hey everyone, hope everyone is doing well. It's Monday, so hopefully everyone started off with a productive morning and their day is going well and ready to tackle the rest of the week. Um, Little update, like always. Started a project today, which was pretty cool and requires a lot of work. And I had to get a bit more involved because we've gotten a bit busy and a bit too busy for my project manager to handle all of the projects. So I had to get involved and help out a bit, right? And so since she's gonna get really busy starting on Wednesday, I figured I would go today, the first day we're starting the project, so that way I'm aware of all of the changes and I know what's going on, and then take it from there. I won't be like 100% in the project, but at least I'll be able to step in to help out because we have a project with some interior designers that we collaborate with pretty frequently in Brooklyn, and so making it from Brooklyn, and we're in New Jersey, so making it to Brooklyn and then also going back to Montclair, where we're working on this other property with some realtors that we collaborate with pretty frequently as well. And we're doing a project for one of their partners that they work with. And so we're going to be doing some painting and drywall repairs and flooring and carpeting, and so that's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to the transformation of that property. And so I did record the property, like the first level, and also I think I got the second level as well. But so if you guys want to take a look at it, you'll see it on my Instagram for cleanest painting, and there you can keep kind of see what's going on with the project, right? So I made it back home, and I drove a bit today, but I didn't get a chance to record. I wasn't in the van today, so I made it back to the office, and I figured I'd keep you guys updated. And something that I wanted to touch on today was because we talk a lot about AI and getting involved and vibe coding. And sorry, I'm not advertising for anyone. It's just like I'm not getting paid for that. So, but one topic that I wanted to touch on was spec-driven development. And what is spec-driven development? Spec-driven development is basically like the specs of the project that you're working on within, let's say, Claude code. That's what I mainly use, or any vibe coding project that you take on. So I've seen a lot of people say that they're AI experts, and they do this and they do that, and that anyone can vibe code. And yeah, anyone can vibe code, but something that needs to be taken into consideration is the infrastructure and the tools that are being used in specific project, and also depending on what you're working on, you want to use certain libraries at times, and these libraries or models um, have different strengths, right? Let's say for certain projects. And so that's why, like, it was always very important to me to have a solid foundation when it came to software engineering. And I mean, I've been studying software engineering since what, 2019. Even before that, I mean, um I got my MBA with a focus on management information systems, um and that was in 2019, 2020. And I took some fundamental courses there. I forget the names of the classes, but I went to NJIT. And so the infrastructure, the back end algorithms, they were always very intriguing to me. I always thought that they were pretty cool because it's like you implement this so that way you can be more efficient with the code, the way that the code runs and the way it stores data. Those are all variables that you need to take into consideration, especially when you're trying to build something that will scale and grow, right? So and the same applies to vibe coding. So something that I would like to say is that if you're going to get into vibe coding, if you're going to do this coding yourself, it's still very important to have an idea or have a basic understanding or have some fundamentals on how a project is created, and the type of tools that you should add to your project based on whatever it is that you're working on. And so, for example, something that was mentioned earlier in the video that I was watching. I'm always trying to learn, especially if I'm driving. I'm always putting on videos, or I'm trying to listen to something to try to be productive. And it is so true. Like with vibe coding, something that is skipped is the oh my god, what is it? The software development lifecycle. Um, SL SLD something. But yeah, basically, what that means is basically the package of what they call a PRD. So that's where you put your product requirement document, where you basically input the tools that you're going to be using. You kind of basically plan it out prior to starting a project. And what tends to happen with vibe coding is like you'll write a prompt like, hey, I'm trying to build a to-do list for myself. Like, all right, well, with the software development lifecycle, you first, like how it usually is with software engineering, you first actually plan things out. You design things out as well prior to just starting on a project, which a lot of people do. But me, even with vibe coding and everything that's came out, before I start a project, and maybe I take a little bit longer than most, but before I start a project, I have to plan it out. And with Claude Code especially, like, it creates plans for you, and you need to read through that plan and make sure that everything is aligning right, and it aligns with your Claude MD file. But prior to that, I create what is called a PRD. And in that PRD, it's like the most imperative things that need to be used. It's kind of like a contract for the project, where I specify like what languages, what programming languages do I want it to use, what libraries do I want it to use, or models in JavaScript. What am I using for authentication? So for example, I I like to, for authentication, because I use a lot of PostgreSQL. I connect actually Supabase. Supabase is PostgreSQL as well. So I haven't had any issues, but I use, for example, Supabase. And with Supabase, it's a database, and with that database, I also use a form of that for authentication. But even the database, you need to specify what type of database you want to use, because there's different types of databases as well based on the type of data that you're going to be feeding the project, right? And also, what are you using for your back end? And also what libraries are you using for the front end. So these are just some things that like you want to take into consideration, especially like if you're trying to, I think it's fine. I think you should just start playing around with vibe coding. But if you are going to get serious and you're trying to build for yourself, I think it is very important for you to get an understanding of what's really going on under the hood. Because what tends to happen is, based on the information, the context that you're giving your model, it can hallucinate. Sorry, I have my laptop behind, well, my monitor behind the phone, so it kind of got like a little bit darker. But as I was saying, is that with the context, right? If you feed a lot of context into Claude Code, let's say, or any other LLM, it can hallucinate. And if it hallucinates, it's because, like, it's taking a toll every time that, like, you needed to review all of your documents. Like, let's say you're a company and you have all of your SOPs in there, like a lot of text, let's say, right? Each time that you make a request for something, it takes a toll. And that toll, it comes in tokens. And there are some pros and cons in that. And that's where, for example, like RAG comes in, retrieval augmented generation, where it's a way of storing context, and it's different to just storing the context in, like, let's say, an artifact in your Claude Code project, let's say, right? And there are some pros and cons to that, because with, like, for example, with RAG, it grabs the context from the RAG information or the vector database, which is also a different type of database that connects, and that you can input, like, information into. But let's say, for example, let's just call that whole field RAG. So let's say with RAG, you input the text into the RAG system, right? And then that's it. It doesn't have to read it again. It just knows everything that's inside the RAG. But you're limited because it basically just knows what's in the RAG system. So, for example, let's say, oh, what security measures were skipped and not used based on, what the best practices are, let's say, right? Like, it won't know that if it doesn't have, for example, in the SOP, if in the SOP is that it doesn't state an action that that you want implemented, like something, basically something that's out of side of that scope or that context, it won't retrieve it. Like, let's say, like, next week you do, like, this week you do something, and then next week you go, and let's say you put something in the rack system today, right, of what happened today. It'll have that information. But if you don't put that information, and you only have the information from yesterday in the past, then it won't have anything that happened today. It won't have any additional knowledge. It just has what you put in there, basically, right? And with not putting it in there, like, for example, a Claude Code, it can actually, like, scan the internet, let's say, right? Scan the web and get you an answer. But with RAG, it just basically knows what you put in there as the context that you provided it. So those are all variables that, like, you need to take into consideration when creating a project, and it just gets more in depth. But like I said, it's just having a basic understanding and just knowing that, like, if you want to build something that, like, you're really thinking about scaling, you want to take into consideration the infrastructure behind it. And either way, I think it's great to just start building. But as you start building more and more, it is important for you to start, looking into getting a better understanding of the fundamentals. One book that I really like, it's called AI Engineering, by the author is Chip something, I forget. I'm horrible with names. And that's always a great start. And of course, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. But like I said, it's just something to take into consideration if you're going to be doing this type of work yourself, right? Because it's like they're always selling vibe coding and all these things, like it's really easy. And I mean, it's gotten much easier, yeah, for sure. But there's still some fundamentals that should be studied. And spec-driven development is definitely a great tool to have under your belt, because even, like, when you're building a project, it can save you so much time down the road. And just before starting a project, it's always good to just also ask it questions. Like, you can ask questions about, like, hey, which tools should I use for this type of project, before starting, just like before having Claude Code, for example, just start writing code, because Claude Code just, like, wants to go off and just start building. But put Claude Code in the plan mode, and in plan mode, start strategizing with it. It can help you tell it that you want to create a PRD and that you want to create the proper infrastructure for this type of project. ask, and also tell it to use the ask me question tool, or the ask question tool. So it asks you questions about what you want, and then based on those answers, it can give you some answers, and then you can ask it questions, and based on what you're trying to achieve, like what does it recommend and why, and you could take it from there. So yeah, just thought I should share that with you. And I'll see you guys soon.